This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions.
News, laws, and regulations are changing by the day. We get it. And at ADP, we're here to help guide you with up-to-the-minute compliance expertise, so you can pay your people accurately and on time, regardless of what each new day may bring. Learn more at adp.com.
Hi, my name's Mark Hayward. This is the Absolute Business Mindset, and here are some of my thoughts, ideas, and comments. So I want to talk about agile. Now, there's a lot of people in business who are talking about being agile in the market, being agile projects, agile sort of methodologies which are going to impact their business. And in most cases, people who are outside the tech industry don't really understand what agile means. So I hear a lot about how they're going to be agile and be able to deliver projects with an agile framework, which mostly it means being able to pivot and be able to change and be able to get things right and get things delivered. When actual fact, the actual agile methodology, which I've been working with in my tech environment for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, and this is completely different. And the definition of the word agile is used by lots of businesses, but the tech industry and other industries, to be fair, but the tech industry have sort of embraced what it is, what actual agile methodology is actually about. So I'm going to spend some time today to talk about agile methodology in tech. And these are all experiences that I have had. So I should be able to give you a pretty good definition if you're trying to think about implementing an agile project. So there are meetings that need to be taking place when you're doing an agile methodology. The first one is a stand-up, which is every day. There is then a sprint planning meeting, sprint retrospective and review meetings, and backlog review meetings. So I'm going to start with the backlog review. So the backlog is all of the work that needs to be done for the whole of that product or service. So we have a backlog which has a number of items. They probably list about 100 or maybe a little bit more on projects, tasks, things that need to be done. Now, what we do on the backlog review meeting, which is probably the start of it all, is we actually review the backlog and prioritize the things that we want to have in the next sprint. So we spend about an hour once every 2 weeks on a Friday to think about what we want to prioritize in our backlog. And in that, we will discuss any projects or tasks that need to be thought about. They will then go to the top of the list, our backlog, and we will then be able to work out. Sometimes we do effort points, which I'll talk about in the sprint planning meeting in a minute. But essentially, we are there to discuss what needs to be in the next sprint or 2 sprints or a couple of sprints. So that is done on a once every 2 week basis on a Friday. And then so that was like -1, that was like 0. And then we then start with the sprint planning meeting. Now, this can be anything from an hour or an hour and a half every 2 weeks. So just to recap, so we do sprints every 2 weeks. So that means that we deliver tasks in a period of a sprint within 2 weeks. Can be shorter, can be longer, depending on the type of the business or the type of the team that you've got. But we do 2 week sprints. I'll maybe talk about that a little bit later on. So the sprint planning meeting is there. And that is to be able to work out what needs to be in that 2 week sprint. So we will take what's in the backlog review, and we will take them and we will talk about the different things that we need to be able to deliver in these next 2 weeks. They are often there is a velocity, so there is an amount of there is an amount of work that we will be able to achieve, and these are done in effort points rather than hours or whatever. And these effort points, you work out how many effort points you'll be able to deliver. Now, the more effort points you deliver, the bigger the team. The smaller the team, usually the less effort points you're able to do. And these can be translatable into hours. And often when we're doing projects or we're doing a new change request for a client, this is all based on effort points that equal how many hours we're going to charge to be able to deliver that service or product or enhancement to the product, let's say. So at the sprint planning meeting, we will talk about what needs to be included in the next 2 weeks. It's a very important meeting. We work out how many sprint points and effort points we're going to do, and then we work out of the tasks, of the priority tasks. They might be enhancements, they might be technical debt, they might be client requests, whatever they are. We work out what are the most important things that we need to be able to deliver. And we are then working out with often client requests trump everything because it brings in revenue. Everything else is usually something that enhances a client or perhaps internal teams that are related to our product. And so we have to prioritize and make a call. And there's basically usually the business people make the final decision because they have the greatest insight into what is actually most important from a business side. So although the techie people, the developers and the testers are there to give their expertise, it's usually in our environment that the business take the call on what's the most important thing. Because if techies had their way, they'd just reduce technical debt and they wouldn't necessarily talk about what we could enhance for clients because they're less business focused. So then let's move on to every day. So every day we spend half an hour, can be less, can be more. Yeah, it can't really be more than half an hour. I think that's probably as much as you'd want it to be on a daily basis. And we talk about what we've done in that last 24 hours. So we will talk about the different projects that we're doing and how we're going to deliver them. Within the sprint planning meeting, you'll work out each of the tasks that need to be done beyond the sort of high level change request or whatever it is. So that is important. And within each day, people will give a review of what they've done in those last 24 hours. And if someone isn't really pulling their weight, then the business people or even the techie people, depending on who the person is, would give a review and just sort of suggest that people need to pull their finger out and do a bit more than what they're doing at the moment. So that's all done. It's a very accountable type of methodology. It keeps everyone that they need to be able to explain what they've done in the last 24 hours, which is really good because it forces people's hands. There's no hiding. It's hard to hide in this sort of agile methodology. So you do get delivery on projects a lot faster, in my opinion, than the waterfall. I won't talk about the waterfall methodology, but essentially you can do some Google on that and you can find out agile is more fashionable at the moment, and that's mainly because of the accountability and the sort of expectation of being able to deliver quickly rather than it taking a couple of months to be able to do a release. So that's the sprint planning meeting. They're the stand-up meetings, and then the backlog review meetings, which we've talked about. The last meeting is the review and retrospective meeting. Now in this is actually where people take stock of what they've actually done in that last 2 weeks, in that last sprint. And it's important because you need to be able to keep a monitor on people, on tasks, on any sort of bugs that have appeared in the sprint. Was there a particular problem that there was lots of bugs, and therefore is the coding being done to a high enough standard? Is there code reviews? Is there enough reviews to be able to deliver? So it's critical that that people are given that accountability, and also in the sprint retrospective and review, it gives people the voice to be able to share where things are going well, where things are not going well, and that is the responsibility for that is from the the business side and also the tech side as well, the developers and the QAs. So I would say the testers. So I would say it is incredibly important that these things are included as well. And the review gives you a point to be able to talk and a sort of lessons learned, what went well, what didn't go well, what you keep, what you should start, and what you should stop is often a good way of being able to propose that. That's essentially what you should be doing every 2 weeks as well. So that's Agile. Now, within that, there's different facets, so I'm not going to go into each of the different facets of it, but I would say that it works very well in tech industry, because a lot of the coders and testers are accountable and are talented and want to be delivering good projects. If there was a sort of industry that wasn't so accountable or was difficult with motivation, I think it would be a bit of a problem, because people wouldn't be so motivated to deliver on the 2 week sprint. Give people places to hide, which Agile is very clear that there's no place to hide within Agile. So you can see the people who are working hard, that are contributing to all the meetings, in the people that are hiding or just sort of saying, "Oh, I didn't do much today, I'll deliver it tomorrow," etc. So it's incredibly important for people to be able to deliver consistent and high quality work as well. So that's Agile. I'm happy to, if you've got any comments or questions, then by all means, then leave them in the notes or in the comment section. That would be great. But that's a practical view of Agile methodology. Right, my name is Mark Hayward. You can check me out on Twitter as Mark Hayward169. YouTube, I've got a bunch of videos, short videos about the things that I like to talk about, which is business, technology, and coaching. And there is a closed Facebook group which you can join, which is Absolute Business Mindset. There is this podcast which is here. So any of the ways to be able to get in contact with me, happy to link in with you if you've got any questions or any comments about anything that I've talked about. Thank you very much.
I'm John Prideaux, host of the Checks and Balance podcast from The Economist. Each week, we unlock the stories and the trends shaping American politics, joined by The Economist journalists from around the world, plus expert guests. We dig into the ideas, the data, and the country's complex history to answer the big questions about where it's headed. That's Checks and Balance. Join me today and start listening on Acast, your podcast app, or wherever you get your podcasts.